Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel, K Melody Drama Club. I'm Samantha, and if you're new here, welcome. Every week, I post videos about K-pop, K-drama, C-drama, etc. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to hit the bell notification so you can stay up to date on all my latest content. If you're returning, thank you so much for joining me again this week. I'm super stoked because today I'm going to be doing a deep dive on the new C-drama Guardians of the Dafeng. It's aired over half of the episodes, but there's still more to go. And today I'm just going to be talking about the first 13 episodes. Now, Guardians of the Dafeng is a 40-episode show. It is currently streaming on WETV, Tencent, and Viki. It's starring Wang Haidi and Tian Zihui. This will be a one of 3 video deep dive. I'll be doing one going over the first 13 episodes, and then I'll be doing episodes 14 through 26, and then I'll be doing 27 through 40. So you can definitely look forward to that. For starting out, I am going to be kind of going more in depth and in detail with the beginning of the storyline to kind of set the foundation for the show. And then I will then start kind of skimming over and talking about brief details of the show and things that happen to kind of gain your interest and kind of make you want to go check it out for yourself and see what all's going on in Dafeng, right? In the beginning, our precious Wang Haidi, aka Dylan Wang, is playing Yang Ling. Yang Ling is a great salesman and is attending a promotional dinner with his coworkers and managers. And at the dinner, you find out that Yang Ling went to the police academy and even took the police academy exam, but he leaves it at that he didn't make it in. There's not a lot of explanation given for that, just that he didn't make it in. He also explains that the business he's in now, which is like selling houses and stuff, he kind of relates it similarly to the police academy because everybody needs, to work to make a living, and all the coworkers who have been drinking are just like, yeah, and they all agree, and it's a whole big thing. But something to note while at the dinner and while it's going on is that he's receiving a promotion, and like the regional manager that's there that he's going to be working with now kind of looks down on him, almost like you're too good to be working here and working for us. Like, you're too good for this job. And he also even mocks his Mandarin, telling him his Mandarin isn't clear and he doesn't enunciate well and this, that, and the other. And Yang Ling kind of shakes off. He's like, you're right. I will practice so much on my Mandarin. And at one point you see him like walk over to this like basket that's on the floor. And it's like almost like a metal basket kind of look. And it's got what appears to be like glass beer bottles in it. And he picks one up, and you kind of think, watching this, you're like, oh my god, are we about to have our first, like, violent scene here? Like, is he about to club him over the head with a beer bottle? You just don't know. And so he picks it up, and he walks over, and he does, by far, one of the most impressive but also attractive things I've seen anybody do with a beer bottle. He literally puts it in his mouth and like bites the cap off, and it's so impressive. And he holds the beer out and he's like, I am dedicating this drink to you, the regional manager. Please, look after me. Please train me to the best of your ability. This, that, and the other. And then proceeds to chug that beer and then let out the loudest burp. Here, I'll show you. Now, after he does this whole promotional drink thing and toasts his new regional manager that he'll be working with, the whole entire table proceeds to start getting drunk, right, and having a good time. And our little youngling is like, hey, after this, let's go to like a murder mystery game. I'm buying. Let's do it. It'll be so much fun. So that's exactly what they do. And disclaimer for anybody that's, ever done a kind of like an escape game, I don't know if they have those overseas or not, or if that's just an in the States kind of thing. But like the escape games where you're like in a room and you have clues and stuff like that in order to escape that room and go to the next room. Yeah, it's nothing like that. And it's nothing like your typical, like, murder mystery parties that you would have here in the States. When they get there, this, like, building or room, if you will, is, like, fancy. I mean, high end, crazy. And so when they get there and they sit down and they're handed these books, and there's a guy there that's like, I'm going to be your host for this game, if you will. And he starts to kind of start talking about how the game will go. And he actually mentions, like, are you Yangling or are you Zukian? And all of a sudden, you're introduced to Dafeng. And while he's telling about this, our precious Yangling gets literally, if you will, sucked into Dafeng. So now all of a sudden, he's no longer in the real world. He's now off in Dafeng, if you will. When he wakes up in a in completely different outfit. His hair's different, he looks different, and he's behind bars in prison. And he realizes he's no longer Yang Ling, but this Zukian person. And so now he has to figure out what kind of person was this Zukian person, and why is he in bars and in prison? What did he do? And for some reason, he's set for death. Like, what could he have done? How did this happen? How did he wake up here? He's got to figure out all of these things, and he's got to try to figure out, how do I get out of this mess, right? So for now, we're going to start referring to Youngling as Zukian, because that's who he is now. And while he's in prison, almost like right off the bat, after waking up, and he like tries to explain to the guard like what happened. He's like, I'm not this Zukian person. I am Youngling, and I teleported here somehow, which if you heard that, you would think he was crazy too. So he gets visited by his cousin, who is a scholar at the local academy. And his name is Zhu Zenen. I hope I pronounced that right. I'm sorry if I butcher names. I'm really trying, I promise. Zhu proceeds to tell him that the reason he's in prison is because his father, which would be Zukian's uncle, got in trouble for tax silver going missing while on a transportation mission. So the entire family is being punished, except for the cousin, due to he has connections within the academy who kind of gave him a pass, right? And Zukian requests the case paperwork for the missing silver case, hoping he can, like, maybe find some clues. Maybe he can figure out, what's missing. Maybe he can get himself out of this mess, right? That's the whole goal here, to survive. And so, using his previous police knowledge from the real world, he discovers missing links in the silver case. And he's able to not only prove that, like, the tax silver that went missing wasn't actually tax silver after all, but in fact it was fake silver made from sodium. And he proves this by explaining the weight difference and the time it would take to transport actual silver varies considering the time it took to transport this, right? He also explains like how the fake silver, when it got when the transportation happened, they kind of got like ambushed attacked, and the silver went over and it went into water and it exploded. And so he explained that when sodium comes into contact with water, it typically has a chemical reaction that results in exploding. If it were real silver, why would it explode? And he even does basically a science experiment for them to prove this theory, which ultimately frees him and frees his entire family and pardons them of it. Because clearly his uncle didn't steal the silver. And his uncle could not have known that it had been replaced prior with fake silver. So all of a sudden, they're no longer looked at as being the ones, the culprit for what happened to the silver. So now that our Zukian is out of prison, he now has to adjust to his new life, right? Who is who is this family now that he lives with? His uncle, who is a guard for the. So now he has to figure out who his family is and the type of people they are, the type of person Zukian was. He has to learn this pretty quickly because you got to remember, he stays with his uncle, his aunt, and there's his cousin who's a scholar, and then there's a sister and a younger sister who he actually does refer to them as like his brothers and sisters, but he lives with all of them. And them seeing him, it's no different for them. Like, right, they've always lived with Zukian. They don't know that anything's amiss or that anything's off. Zukian's the one that has to figure all this stuff out and find out what kind of people are they, what kind of person was Zukian, and try not to, tip the scale or let anything be amiss of like, why are you acting weird. So he quickly gets told that, you need to go to work. In fact, his aunt chases him around with basically a meat cleaver or, a butcher knife, if you will, or whatever. Chases him around the local town like, you are going to work and you're going to help pay to, keep this house running. Our precious Zukian was like, no, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to do that. That doesn't sound like fun to me. But anyways, he starts working as a constable, and everybody there finds out that he solved that, fake tax silver case, and is like, ooh, he's got a knack for this. Maybe he can figure out all of our unsolved cases. Maybe he can find the missing clues and we can get these solved. So they load him up with all, and I do mean it's a lot, all the missing cases or cases that are unsolved, if you will. And you will hear him say, this isn't worth it. Like, this is not what he wants to be doing at all. He very much wants to be where the action is, right? He wants to be serving the people. He wants to be fighting. That's what he wants. But he's got to go through some other steps before he can get there, right? Kind of like prove himself. So throughout the storyline, though, this whole tax silver case, kind of follows him around, unfortunately. And people kind of use that to their benefit to try and solve cases. But also throughout the storyline, our Zukian uses his knowledge from the real world and applies it to present-day Dafeng, knowing that there is no one to question him. So, for example, the whole science experiment, proving that it was sodium instead of, the actual silver. And then he helps his cousin who, wanted to write this like farewell poem for one of his masters that was like leaving the academy. He helped him write it. And he did so by reciting poems he had read previously, like in the real world. The issue is our Zukian only read partial poems. He never actually finished one. So while he can recite all these amazing poems that people are just in awe of, he can never finish one because he doesn't, he never finished reading it. He doesn't know how the rest of it is supposed to go. So all he can do is write all these unfinished poems. And they're like amazing works of art. Like, everybody's so impressed. And then they're like, wait, where's the rest of it? And he's like, it hasn't come to me yet. But what's truly great while he's writing these poems is we get what we would call an Easter egg. And if you're familiar with Easter eggs from any other types of movies in the past, they are always such a joy to find. And so our precious Zukian throws in a song lyric for our Wang Heidi's Seaside Tango song. If you haven't heard it, go check it out. But he actually recites a tidbit of that song, and if you are familiar with that song, you probably picked up on it immediately. As he starts to recite it, and his cousin's, like, writing it down, he's like, wait, stop, that's not it. And that's all we get of it, but it was enough that if you know that song, you immediately pinpoint it, and you freaked out, right? I did. I totally freaked out. I was like, oh my god, no, he did not. He did not just Easter egg us. kudos to him, honestly. But for all this knowledge he has from the real world, he is actually sought after by so many different people. He is sought after by the alchemists of the Astronomical Bureau for his knowledge on alchemy and for the whole fake silver experiment. They too are like, ooh, we wanna learn how to make fake silver. We want to learn what you know, you know. And the academy his cousin goes to, all of the high up teachers there, they're like, you know, we really want to get him to come to this academy. Like, his poetry is just top notch. So with all these connections that he's made with his vast knowledge, actually end up saving him in various times and situations. And he always does it in the form of like an exchange of like, you know, you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back kind of mentality. Like at one point, in order to protect his family and keep them safe, he schemes up this plan to have someone kidnapped and then manages to get it blamed on the person trying to hurt his family. I'm not going to go into too many details on this particular scenario. It is kind of lengthy. I just invite you to go check out Guardians of Dafeng so you can see it for yourself. But the Guardians, which are like, they're amazing. They are like the highest form of guard defense Dafeng has. And they have these like amazing outfits. There's different ranks as well, kind of like you would have in like any type of military service here. You know, there's all kinds of different ranks for the Guardians. But I digress. The Guardians investigate and they do figure out and admit that, you know, Zhu Qian went about this plan pretty impressively. And like they watched him do it. They didn't intervene. I think they were more impressed with like the steps he took and how he made it happen, that they just, you know, they were like, he needs to join us. But also it helps that he also had a recommendation from the Grand Princess. He has offered an invitation to join the Guardians, which is a dream of Zhu Qian's since winding up in Dafeng. Joining the Guardians isn't as easy as you might think. You have to go through some tests, and you have to ultimately pass these tests in order to officially become a Guardian. And Zhu Qian ultimately ends up acing the test. Like, literally, he's given an A+. And it's the first A+ anyone has seen in a long time. And he starts off as a Copper Gong Guardian to gain knowledge and training on his way to becoming a Gold Gong, which is the highest Gong level you can possibly get. Unfortunately, Zhu Qian's superior is a Silver Gong leader, and he doesn't like him. So he gives him a hard time by making him work on, you guessed it, open mission cases that have not been solved. Which, as I said previously, Zhu Qian hates these. He does not think it's worth it. He might be good at it, but again, he wants to be where the action is and where the fighting is, right? So finally, our Zhu Qian is finally given a chance to join his new friends in the Copper Gongs on a mission. It's here that he gets to show his strength and how good he can be for the Guardians. And we also, later in the show, get introduced to our precious Princess Linan, who's played by our Tian Ziwei. And she learns about how good of a poet our Zhu Qian is. And she decides to pose as the Grand Princess, who initially recommended him for the Guardians, to try and recruit him for a poetry competition that she needs to win, as she is typically looked down on. Zhu Qian agrees and believes she's the Grand Princess who recommended him to the Guardians, so he does it as more of like a favor or a thank you for recommending him. He feels like almost indebted to her, and it's hilarious how hard our Linan tries to make sure he doesn't find out that she isn't who she says she is. She goes to some great lengths, to be honest, to try and keep him, in the dark. And she basically tells him that he doesn't have anything to worry about with the Guardian. She knows that, he doesn't get along with that Silver Gong Guardian, but she's taking care of it and he's protected. He doesn't have to worry about anything going south with them or anything like that. But that's actually not true. He believes it hook, line, and sinker, but that's not remotely true. In fact, when Zukian takes leave here and there to meet with the princess to discuss these poems, oftentimes it's randomly throughout the day. And at one point, he leaves his post to go see her because she has summoned him. And he's thinking, oh, it's no big deal because she's got my back, with the Guardians. It's no big deal. So he goes and he visits with her and he comes back. And lo and behold, the Silver Gong leader has found out he left his post when he was supposed to be working. Calls him out in front of all the other Guardians. And I mean, in front of everybody, saying, you're in trouble and I'm going to punish you for it. And our Zukian is like, no, you're not. And here's why. And it is the most jaw-dropping scene I have seen yet, honestly. Like, my jaw just, hit the floor. Like, did he just say that? Did he really just say that? Does he know who he's talking to? Yes, he does. He goes on to tell him that he's been, closely watching the Guardians and that there are several improvements that he's come up with that he believes will ultimately reshape the Guardians and make them better. And then proceeds to, hand them over this book of 10 steps of things he thinks should be changed in order to make them better. And it's funny because his Silver Gong leader is like, oh, he's taken back. He backs up and he's like, oh my God, I was not aware that there were things going on that needed to be addressed. I feel like if you had mentioned this to me, I would have made these corrections, but I will definitely, take these into advisement and make necessary corrections and updates as needed. And then he's like, basically good work. So yeah. Just, it's a crazy scene. And honestly, I really believe that it shows a lot of strength and growth in our Wang Heidi's acting, to be honest. I really saw it there and I was like, wow, I'm just floored. I'm floored. At one point, our Zukian obtains an item called a jade mirror. Now, like I said, I am going to skip over some details. I'm not going to be very, detailed. I don't want to tell the whole story because then you're not going to want to watch it, right? The whole idea is to get you to want to watch this show and check it out for yourself. I'm just kind of giving you some brief teasers, if you will, to get you excited. So, as I said, he obtains this jade mirror, and the mirror is very special, and there's not a lot known about it. We know that it can suck people in it, if that makes sense, temporarily holds them, and then he can how do I put this, he can remove them from it and bring them back into the real world, if you will, or I should say in the Dafeng world. I don't want to confuse you. So he can suck them into this mirror temporarily. He can also release them from it, but it's also used as almost like a phone, right? So it's a way for him to connect with the others that have these mirrors, because there are 9 in total. And he learns that only special selected people get these mirrors in order to represent what is called the Realm Sect. And he has been asked to represent as number 3 out of the 9 by Jinlian, who oversees the other sectors but also represents the Earth Sect. Like I said, there's still not much known about these mirrors. There's not a lot known about this group. Most of them try to keep their identities a secret. And so they call each other number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, 7, 8, and 9, right? To avoid giving away identities just yet. But Arzukian gets into some trouble with this group. He's just joined. He wants to show that he can be trusted and relied on, but at the same time, he's also a guardian. So the lines of what's right and what's good, and also with trying to be accepted in this new group and organization that he needs to learn more about for the Guardians in the first place, like those lines get kind of blurred. And so he ends up having to do things that would not constitute as being morally okay as a Guardian, right? But he has to win favor in this group. So he does what he has to in order to both stay a Guardian, keep his family safe, keep himself alive, but also to remain as part of this realm sect so that he can learn more about each member, but also learn more about what this realm sect ultimately does, what their role is in all this, right? So we have that going on as well. We also have the fact that the Gold Gongs, which I mentioned previously, it's the highest ranking you can get in the Guardians. Multiples of them, because there's not many, but multiples of them catch wind that Zukian is an A plus ranking Guardian, and that he's, being trained and is well on his way, right? And they're like, oh no, I want him. No, I want him. And so the Gold Gong that currently has him in training with his Silver Gong leader, he he's like, okay, well, you're gonna have to fight me for him, but let's do this. And honestly, this fighting scene is so impressive. This fighting scene is so impressive and so funny to watch. You won't be able to stop laughing and cutting up at Zukian and his friends and the reactions that everybody has to watching these Gold Gongs fight, because it is top tier. It is crazy how they fight and the things that happen. So, it's just wild. Now, Zukian was given a choice. Like, he could pick his own Gold Gong if he wanted to, but he chose not to. And he really thinks he's being smart about this by not choosing. He decided to let Lord Wei choose, who is actually the leader of the Guardians and oversees all of them, and he's in charge. He is, like, at the top. He's in charge. And so he says, I'd prefer you to choose for me, thinking, I'm being the smart one. I'm going to give him all the power. I'm going to let him pick. And so our Zukian's got it in his mind that I'm being transferred. I'm being transferred. Not that he has any issues with anybody, but, like, he's like, I know I'm just going to get transferred to another Gold Gong, leader. I know I am. He's got himself convinced. He's like, there's no way I'm sticking around doing the same work I've been doing. So he gets himself convinced. He even he even like tells all of his other, Gold Gong friends. He's like, y'all, I know I'm getting transferred out. And they're like, oh yeah? And he's like, yeah. And they're like, who'd you pick? And he's like, I didn't. And they're like, what? Why not? Because it's smarter to let, Lord Wei pick for me, and I know he's going to transfer me. And they're like, they already think our Zukian is so smart and so clever, and he knows so much that they're like, oh yeah, yeah, you're right, that's so smart. Man, way to be, yeah. And he even goes to his Silver Gong leader, which, remember, he hasn't always had the best terms with, but he has been working on it. And he really, really strokes his ego and is like, I really tried. I mean, he even sheds a tear. He works it, man. He's like, I really tried. I really tried to, stay with you. I told Lord Wei I wanted to stay with you and learn from you, and really just eats it up, right? Now, as he's doing this, nobody knows what the verdict is. They haven't looked at it. They do have an answer, but they don't know it yet. They haven't looked at the paperwork yet. And so he's just kind of stroking that ego, trying to really just make him have, basically have somebody on the inside that would be on his side, right? So he really just tries to get him to eat it up, right? And I mean, it goes as far as to be like, you're my brother. And I mean, you can just tell this Silver Gong leader is just like really moved. He's like, wow, I'm I'm actually sad if he gets transferred. Like, he's actually like moved by this. And so then they go and look at it, and it's not what you think. which is great. I think this entire show is great for that. Everything that you expect's gonna happen doesn't. It's always the complete opposite, or it's something completely out of left field that you don't expect, which is always better and funnier. And I think that's what's so great about this show is that it keeps you guessing. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. It keeps you wondering what wild thing is going to happen next. So, if you are looking for a drama that has action and fighting scenes, that has a little bit of romance, and a whole lot of comedy.
这就得分享，谁也好兄弟。别浪费，团长，别浪费啊！团长，徐老板，这么难吃，我差点吐了。
Look no further than Guardians of the Dafeng, now streaming on WETV, Tencent, and Viki. So what are you waiting for? Go watch! And please look forward to video 2 that'll be coming out probably next week, pending that all the episodes drop through episode 26, and I will be dropping another video that deep dives into episodes 14 through 26. And thank you so much for watching. Peace and love.